Welcome everyone to the infrastructure group conversation for August. Today's August 26th. I'm Steve Lloyd. I'll be the host along with Andrew Thomas as well, our new program manager for, sorry, not program manager, product manager for infrastructure. In the deck today, we have a good amount of information about recent availability, some of the Q3 OKRs, information about a year of GitLab.com on Kubernetes, some team updates from each one of our teams, the SRE teams, scalability, and also delivery team, and then also some of our cost efficiency update information. So it looks like, Sean, you have the first question.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. This is more a question for Andrew Thomas, because basically I realized, hi, Andrew, I haven't really spoken to you. So I'm curious about where you've been spending your time so far, what's been occupying you in your first sort of, however long it is at GitLab, and also what you're looking to focus on in future.
Yeah, great question, and it's great to meet you as well. So I've been, in my time here, just a little bit over 2 months, I've been focusing on two main work streams. The first is working on the Kubernetes migration and making sure that any blockers the team has in the GitLab application, making sure those are addressed. So that was a big one. And then also thinking about the GitLab.com strategy, which I'm gonna open up a MR for pretty soon here, but that's gonna lay out some of the big initiatives that we're planning on for fiscal year 22. And the kind of big theme that we're thinking about there is making GitLab.com more enterprise ready, focusing on things like availability, performance, and also security enhancements. So watch out for that MR soon. And then what am I focused on in the future? So I think we talked about this in the key meeting yesterday, but one of the big things we need to figure out is our disaster recovery strategy for .com. I'm going to be working on that pretty soon.
Great, thank you.
Well, Jeff, I think you're up next.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm just curious on some of the broader team lessons learned with non-production infrastructure requests that we can iterate on. I know that we have just various individual contributors who ask, I need infrastructure for this. Obviously, we're working on a couple initiatives, but I'm just looking like retrospectively or retroactively, like what are some things we saw in the past we'd really like to improve in the next couple iterations, if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Waiting to see if it's quiet. I'll go ahead and speak up, Jeff. Good to be talking with you again. I think the central one, and we already started to talk about this with some of the infrastructure standards, is that historically the infrastructure team has kind of been the gatekeepers of a lot of things at the organization level in GCP and some other places. And I think the lesson I've been learning as we watch access requests come through is what can we do to get the infrastructure team out of the way of manual access request management for a lot of those things. So it was pushing down responsibility for, giving teams the ability to have autonomy inside their own folder inside of GCP. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'd share. Once I'm done talking, I'll go get links to our infrastructure standards, epics, and some things and link them out there. But I think that's the biggest thing, is asking our questions of, particularly around access requests and some of these asks, what can we do to not have to have them even come through the infrastructure team? And so let's build an architecture that people have their autonomy safely along with working with security so that they can manage their own access, get advice from us if they've got questions, but enable them to just do what they need.
That's a great summary of what we've been talking about. I just want to make sure everyone, I went to call it here, so thanks for sharing that.
And then I'll finish typing after I finish this, but thanks for the question, Jeff. One of the other things that I've noted too is we have a space in our handbook page of getting assistance, and it's more of like a general bucket where we can funnel like sales enablement type requests or just general help requests. And so on sales enablement side of things, one of the things at least I've noticed and actually has been getting noticed is, prospects and current customers do dig around in our handbook and want to read about things about like business continuity and disaster recovery. And so quite often those requests are like clarifying those details or clarifying some aspects that we might run into as running GitLab.com that a potential large customer who's going to be doing standalone wants to know about, like, oh, how big does this get? Those types of things. And so I guess to summarize, what I'm seeing there is like, rather than having like these more general like buckets for these asks, like I think maybe, and I know we've made some strides for this, but like helping develop a deeper knowledge base of some of the things that we've run into to maybe sort of get ahead of these asks being interruptive. So.
And then I think my other comment would be mirroring a little bit of what was said here. I mean, we want to make it easy for people to do what they need to do. I mean, people are coming to get infrastructure, get systems because they have some other tasks that they need to complete. We want to make sure it's easy to do that, but then also ensure that we're kind of accounting for getting the right security in place, getting the right policies in place for these systems, so that not for that being the end on its own, but so that we don't create more toil after the fact, that we don't create other problems that that create a bunch of inefficient work or effort, or even worse situations. So that's a big ask to complete all of that. I do appreciate the work that you've done so far on the demo systems. I think that is really headed in a good direction, and then also the effort that you put into kind of framing up the beginning of the working group around infrastructure standards. So I think we'll get a lot out of that. So I really appreciate your effort on it.
So thanks.
All right, Victor, if you want to verbalize your question.
Yep, thanks. So I'm just going through the slides still, and I've seen this topic that to improve access, easier access to G-key clusters, and I already read the description briefly, but we have a related issue with the configure team. We created, I think, yesterday or before yesterday, so it's pretty fresh. And primarily, I would say I would love to hear your feedback on it, whether you think it would be valuable for GitLab to have something like this, whether you would love to use it, and if so, then we are more than happy to prioritize it accordingly. The idea here is to provide a way, undefined, what that way will mean, to access services inside Kubernetes.
Great, Victor. Thanks for core infra. We'll be thinking about this. We're also really raw and just starting to think about it. So this is great timing. We will be happy to engage and talk on that issue. I think our core question and the problem we're trying to solve is things like the Kubernetes API server and the Vault server. These are things that the infrastructure team, everybody in our distributed team would like to access fairly easily from their laptops or something like that. Yeah. And yet we just don't want to expose those services to the internet. So we will engage on the issue. It's great timing. Thanks.
Actually, I would have another topic as well that I even didn't have time to take a note about, which is we are super happy that some of your teams are working together with the configure team, and we are dogfooding a few services, like some of those are even mentioned in the slides and so on. A question we have in this regard is any of your teams interested in dogfooding the Terraform merge request widget, or even provide feedback on that? So I know that we are using Terraform extensively, and we'll be more than happy to get feedback internally as well, not just externally.
Yeah, if you could give us an issue link, drop it. I think one of our engineers who helps manage Terraform stuff is on vacation this week, but I think he would be. Another good opportunity actually to circle all the way back to Jeff's thing is we're looking at using Terraform pretty extensively for some of the things with general infrastructure standards. So it might be a good place to explore there too.
Sure. Actually, it was GitLab, the motivation behind this development.
Yeah, Victor. I think if you can share that, share an issue with us, like as David said, we've got quite a few dog fooding efforts that we're working on in Q3 now. But I think there's we certainly still want to continue providing feedback to other parts of the product as well, as to how we're going, and obviously we use Terraform a lot, so I'm sure that we'd have a lot to say, just like we do in some of these other areas. Right now we're doing dog fooding around a little bit of work with the Jupyter notebooks. We're also doing quite a bit around using the new incident management features within health, and continue to provide feedback on various parts of monitor and everything. So quite a bit going on there, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to be providing some feedback in the future, and help out the configure team.
One question here is that would you prefer to have a specific issue for dog fooding, or are you interested in the issue where we implemented the feature? What should I link to?
I think maybe where you implemented the feature to start with, and then what we can do is figure out kind of how to turn that into, like, what would be most useful to turn into a dog fooding epic. I think we'd also want to do something that we could have a small iteration on, within whether it's if it's something we do next quarter or whatever, but like kind of figure out how to scope that best so that we can get you useful feedback, but then also have it be a manageable set of work.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Sid, if you want to go ahead and verbalize your comment.
Yeah, thanks for the extensive links in the presentation. It's easy to follow what the team is doing, and I love all the links to the details. And I must say, many of the issues themselves too are just have crisp descriptions of what work is going on. I think it's pretty awesome.
Like I'm sure, as you'd expect, that's absolutely a team effort, and was the kind of everyone on the managers, as well as a number of kind of the team members within each one of the teams putting that all together. So, but thank you for the feedback on that. Mike, if you want to verbalize your question.
Yeah, and I'd echo it. Thanks for the links in there that kind of helped me follow through, and ask. I'm just curious what logging is and what kind of drives that cost.
Yeah, so maybe I'll give a very high level answer, and then there's probably someone that can provide a lot more detail. But when we're talking about logging in this respect, it's really the underlying both system and application logs that we want to not only retain, but be able to do various analysis on to help troubleshoot different problems, to do to identify trends in underlying kind of capacity and performance troubleshooting, and those sorts of things. And so the volume of that, and this is not unique to GitLab by any means, but the volume of that can be pretty tremendous, and it takes kind of a constant effort of tuning and performance management of what we're logging, as well as how we log it, to make sure that cost doesn't get away from us. And Anthony and his team, and their team is the observability team, are basically our experts around that. So turn it over to Anthony.
Yeah, I can go into just a tiny bit more detail there. We have two primary systems that we use for log storage and aggregation. One is short-term, one is long-term. The short-term solution is Kibana, which is powered by Elasticsearch on the back end. We use this primarily for troubleshooting and exploration in near real-time application performance, errors, exceptions, etc., as well as for any kind of metrics aggregation that we may not have with our Prometheus Thanos storage application, metrics storage. We also have Google Cloud Storage, where these are shipped directly to buckets for long-term retention. These are basically for audit and security purpose. We keep roughly 1 year worth of logs for most systems. It is searchable, but it's also there in case we have to go back, work with security, see what the impact was of perhaps breaches or certain exposure to endpoints and systems, et cetera, et cetera. Of course,
Cool,
all
thank you.
their own unique cost footprint.
Yeah, and Igor identified an issue there with some recent cost analysis that's probably of interest. There's also a board if you want to look at there's an InfraFin board, which has a number of different issues. You can look at some closed issues as well as the current issues that we have there. A lot of those go into cost analysis. Some of them around logging, in addition to the one that Igor put there. And Victor, if you want to go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Just looking at the last slide and seeing all the cost efficiency improvements and still much to remain, I realized that we just started to investigate cluster cost management more deeply, and it would be great to speak with someone responsible for it at GitLab to learn our own use case around that.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question and taking a look at that. Davis Townsend really is the person who heads up a lot of the kind of like overall analysis, and also as the mention I just made of that InfraFin board and kind of what we generally just refer to as kind of the InfraFin process, basically bringing the infrastructure cost and the finance concerns and finance drivers of that together and creating insight around that is what Davis coordinates. And so he'd be a great person to talk to, as well as look at some of the links and everything off the InfraFin board. There's a start of information in if you look at the infrastructure area in the handbook. There's some InfraFin documentation started in there, and we're looking forward to building out a lot more of that over the next couple quarters.
Thank you.
The other questions that anyone just wants to verbalize, and we can always document as we go. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time today. Appreciate the great questions and engagement. Those of you that are helping with commit or participating in commit, have a great rest of your day in those sessions and everything. And we'll talk again next time. Thanks, everyone.